Focus on Guiding. Brought to you by Sight Loss Friendly Church from Torch Trust.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Torch House. It's lovely to have you. I was going to say lovely to have you here. It's lovely to have you on Zoom, and this is the first Focus on session that we've ran from Torch House. So we're very, very much looking forward to running it. It's great to have some of us all in the same place. There might be a few problems with the internet, and there might be a few problems with panning cameras around, as you'll have experienced by the slightly late start. So if you could just bear with us as we go through this session, we will do our best to eliminate all of those sorts of problems. There might also be a few issues when you're asking questions. If you can hear yourself, please just bear with it. It's because of the way we've had to set Zoom, but we need to be able to hear what you're saying, but it might mean that you can hear yourself. So if that happens, we apologise for that, and we'll do our best to remedy that problem as and when it arises. My name is Matthew Horspool. I'm from the Sight Loss Friendly Church team. Joining me is Becky Davis and Lynn Davis, also from the Sight Loss Friendly Church team. But the real star of the show today is James Hassell, who's one of our Sight Loss Friendly Church volunteers. Those of you who've been on training sessions will know James. He's one of the people that very often comes into training and tells his own personal story. But he is going to be running our session this afternoon all about guiding. So on that note, I'll turn it over to James and let James introduce himself, and then we'll go through the session.
Good afternoon. It's good to be with you. And as Matt's already said, my name's James Hassell. I work now for the Royal National Institute of Blind People and look after a region called the East Midlands, especially looking after Lincolnshire and Rutland. But within my job there at the RNIB, part of it is to actually do sighted guiding training for companies, for organisations, charities, and also to train new members of staff within the RNIB. So I do know a tiny bit about it. Yes, I am late to the game in many senses. I've only been registered severely sight impaired in the last couple of years. Prior to that, I was registered sight impaired. And prior to that, I used to be a tree surgeon. So as you can imagine, it came as a shock to myself. And everything I speak about today comes from personal experience and is an opportunity to share that experience with those on this video call today. And I have got some very able and willing volunteers. I did have to twist their arms slightly because the sheer idea of a visually impaired stroke blind person taking them for a sighted guide talk did frighten them slightly. But I've got to say thank you to Becky for volunteering or being volunteered by her colleagues. I'm not sure which way around it was, Becky, but thank you. And here we go. Right, so the visually impaired or blind person has arrived at your church. You're on the welcoming committee. And one of the tasks you've got to do is get them into this new building that is strange to somebody who's got sight loss. And it's always great fun because there's always the obstacles that you've got to consider. There's the amount of people who constantly move around, whether that's the young child of 2, 3, who's toddling around at knee height, or other members of the congregation who are rushing around trying to get things set up before the service. And then, of course, you've got to consider after the service, people moving around to go to the coffee area, and then, of course, to get the visually impaired person out. And it sounds really simple. And every visually impaired person who needs assistance will always be taught by a ROVI or a person who's registered to train people who are visually impaired. But before we get that far, there's a very simple question that you really need to start by asking. Other than asking them how they are, being polite, introducing yourself, always ask, how do they want to be guided? Some people, if like me, it's by someone's voice. If I can just about see their outline. So if they're wearing a high contrast colour, I will be able to follow them wherever. Other people who've got very limited or very poor sight may actually need to be guided, and that's what the session's about. So we're going to talk about the grips that they will use to hold you or would like to be used. And then we will talk about why we use those grips, what the advantages of them are, and also how best to guide them around your church building. And it may involve going up and down stairs. It may be that you have changes in texture of floor that causes issues. It might be that you've got pews, or it might be that you've got chairs like we have here today. But these chairs, we will also imagine they are pews for parts of this talk, as that will help you realise the techniques and some of the difficulties that you can find yourself in while guiding people. But you want to make it as seamless as possible and helpful. And if you get an opportunity to practice with other members of the welcoming team, that's great. But here we go. We're going to start off by the person's arrived and you've asked them, how do you want help guiding? And they actually say, can I borrow your elbow, or can I borrow your forearm? Or it might even be, if they're really tall and you're really short, can I borrow your shoulder? And I want to start off by just showing you that we start off as a visually impaired person. You use what we call a Lego grip. It's the C shape that you create. And with it, as I'm going to demonstrate with Becky, who's just stood up, I want to just grab hold of her her right elbow. And there's one thing that we all get wrong, so don't worry about it. Right, if you just want to bend your arm slightly to 90 degrees, that's it. And I will just literally hold the elbow with that C grip. And it's very important that we offer that elbow. And it might be that because I can't see it, and I put my hand out like that, Becky just has to move back towards it, or you have to move back towards it. They may, of course, have a height difference. And they may actually say, can I use your shoulder? And again, that's C, onto the shoulder, and that's it. You're holding them. Or they may say, can I hold your forearm? Which, of course, if you're the person who's offering the arm, please bring it away from your body and then allow them to go through and put their hand on top of your arm. And then you can bring it into a position where you feel comfortable. And they're the three holds that we use. And one of the beauties of using these holds is, if Becky forgets to tell me which direction we're going and she turns left, I will automatically know by the way my arm is being pulled. Or if she goes to the right, again, it's pushing me and I will automatically turn. The same happens with it on the shoulder. And again, the same happens if it's on the forearm. So there we are. We've got how you hold or how you offer to help. So the key thing is to ask. The second thing is to remember when they say, yeah, I would like to hold your shoulder or your elbow, they may put their arm out. You've got to bring your arm back into that position, but allow them to hold the elbow, shoulder, or the forearm, depending on what they ask for. And as I say, if you forget to mention when guiding that you're turning left or right, then I will naturally get pulled round to the left or the right. If it also works if you're going up and down stairs and you forget to mention it, if there's a single step, I will note by the way the person goes up or down, depending on which way the step is, what's happening. And I will automatically, as a visually impaired stroke blind person, will stop because I at that point know something's happening differently. Becky would then realise that I have stopped and have literally either let go of her arm or I've slowed it down and pulled her arm back. It also works if you're walking too fast or too slow. So if you're walking too fast, Becky's arm would get pulled back. If she's walking too fast, my arm gets pulled forward. And you as the guider can gauge from that how to slow down or speed up accordingly. So those are the grips and why we go for the elbow, shoulder or forearm. Normally we will say don't hold the person's hand, but very rarely you will find that an individual will want to hold their hand. They're more comfortable holding the elbow or the shoulder. Now, I'm going to get rid of my sight again. Guide cane or Malone cane for a minute, because Becky has been delegated to be guided by me. Now, here we go, a bit of fun and game. This is the blind leading the sighted, so please remember that. And I am reassured that Becky is the first aider, so I don't want to have the accidents as that then means I've got to fill the paperwork in and not Becky. Right, so Becky's come into church as the visually impaired person. First thing I'm going to say is, how would you like guiding? Which side would you like guiding from?
That's a very good question, James. I think this side, whatever that is. Right. See, I'm hopeless at right.
Okay, right. So in that case, Becky would need to hold on to my left elbow. I'm going to take a step forward. I'm going to pass my elbow back to Becky so you actually find it. Right, hold on to the elbow quite tight. Right, we're going to walk forward. We're going to walk forward at a moderate speed. I'm not going to say it's the world record. I'm going to turn left. And turn left. I hope you miss the chairs that we've got set out. And I keep going. I've just said, well, we've gone past several rows of pews. Whereabouts in church would you like to sit? Do you want to sit at the front, the back, in the middle?
In the middle, please, James.
Okay, we will do that. So come in from the back of the church. And we're going to turn again left. We're going to walk forward 2 places. That's it. Next to the middle row of chairs. What I'm now going to do is put my hand on the row in front. The reason we put my hand on the row in front, Becky can then slide her hand down until she's got the back of the chair. I can step out of the way and say, Becky, okay, there's 3 rows in front of you. You will need to move forward slightly. Okay, you've got the back of the chairs now. Now move over to your left. And move over to your left again. And there we are. Now you can sit down safely. Muscle memory has taught us how to stand up, how to sit. Well, it's always great fun going in between pews, because pews can be of varying widths, various heights. You can guarantee if it's an old traditional church, there'll be that 1.5 to 2 inch gap where there's a wooden plinth that you've got to step up into. Some of the churches that I've been in recently, they've got heating pipes that you have to step over. And it's always useful to tell the person that they've got to step up 2 inches and they've got to step over the heating pipes if they're there. Right, that's how we get somebody into a pew. Now I'm going to show you how to do it wrong. Now hopefully you will remember Becky is going to survive this, honest. So you have to worry. Okay, Becky, do you want to stand up? Do you want to come back to the front? Right, this time we're going to go the other way around.
Okay.
You got that? Right, in fact, I'm going to do it completely wrong. I've grabbed Becky's arm and I'm guiding Becky. And I'm guiding her in quite a forceful manner because I've got the back of her arm and the hand, which are neither recognitions. And I'm not telling you what direction we go, we're just front marching it to a place. Then I get to the pew. I'm going to walk in. I'm not telling Becky there's a pew there. I grab the other hand, I walk forward, and all of a sudden I'm at the end of the pew, I can't get out, and I need Becky to sit down. So I force her round and sit her down. It doesn't help. It makes the person feel insecure. It's not helpful. And we've forgotten all the things that we've said about asking them how they want to be guided, where they want to sit, and how we get them to their seats there. So there we are. I want Becky to stand up again. Right, we're halfway through the church service. Becky, you can sit down in any seat you like. And the minister uses those wonderful words. Can you come to the front? I've given everybody a piece of a post-it, and I want you to write on there something that you want to pray for. And then we're going to put them on the Lord's table at the front of the church. Now, in this imaginary church that we've got here today, there are 2 steps. And the first time my minister did it in the church that I'm at now, I did a wonderful impression of Superman. So I ended up going up, falling forward, because I didn't realise there were 2 steps up to the Lord's table. And so it causes issues, it causes problems. So again, you come up to the person, would you like to come to the front and hand your prayers in? Now, I'm assuming that Becky's managed to write a prayer down, which again, it might be, would you like to write down something, or would you like me to write something down for you to pray for? Becky tells me the situation in the Ukraine. So I write Ukraine with my bad spelling. I've spelled it wrong, but God knows our intention. And I said, do you want to take it to the front? Becky at this point says yes. Right. Okay, would you like to stand up? Which arm would you like writing on?
Let's go. Oh no, I said this one before. Let's do this one.
Okay, we're going on to your right. Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm going to come round in front of you.
Yeah.
I'm going to present my left elbow again. There's my elbow. We're going to walk forward. We've just walked down the main aisle of the church. You say, I know you're married. I'm not going to ask about that. Okay, and we're actually at the front of the church, and the table that we've got to get to is up 2 steps. So I'll say, yeah, we've just arrived at the first table. I'll have stopped, which automatically tells Becky we're there. Then say, we're about to go up a step. It's 4 inches high. So it's a normal step sort of depth. So you're allowed anything up to 7 inches. And it's about 2 feet wide. It's quite a nice wide step. And we just literally pretend to go up the step and step on. We then go forwards and say, okay, I'm at the next step. We're about to go up again. And I would explain that, and we would move forward until we got to the Lord's table and we found the plate and put your post-it on it. Then we've got to get back to the steps, to the seat. So we've got to get back down those steps. So we turn around. Which way would you like to turn around? Do you want to go to the left or me to go to the right?
Let's go to the right.
Okay. It's all right. Becky's testing my left and right here. I'm as bad as everyone else. Right. We've come down 2 steps. We're now facing the seat that you were in. And I'm going to say the seat that you were in is directly in front of you. You will be able to find the back of it, okay? And you're all right to turn around and sit down?
Yep. Thank you very much, James.
And there we are. We've got to the back to a seat. We've assisted. And at the end of the day, we're there to help. We're not there to grab and drag. Grab and drag to a visually impaired person is a nightmare and occasionally causes more problems than it resolves. So it's always about asking, always about letting the person who's visually impaired feel comfortable in guiding, being guided. And it's also about you as the person doing the guiding, feeling comfortable. One of the things that church worship is meant to be, it's meant to be natural. So I don't want you to worry about how you guide. As a visually impaired person being guided, I've been used to people saying left and they've gone right, and they've said right and they've gone left, and they've said a step down when there's a step up. But if they're holding on to you correctly, they will automatically adjust. And they accept that, like themselves, they get things wrong at times. And very rarely will you find a grumpy person being guided. They're always grateful for the help. So we've got to the end of the service. What have I forgotten? Well, I forgot to say to Becky, do you want large print service sheets? Or can you see what is on the data projector screen at the front of church? Do you want positioning in a very specific spot so that you can see what's on that screen? Or in some churches, you may be issued with a laptop or a tablet that enables you to see the words of the service and the hymns. And it's just making sure Becky is aware of what's going on, or the visually impaired person's aware of what's going on in that situation. So that's the main parts of sighted guiding. Then, of course, we get to the end of the service. And this is where the fun really starts, because the young people come back into church. They like running around. And if, like the curate's young daughter at the church where I attend, they love running off with your guide cane. And you're suddenly thinking, hold on a minute, I'm sure I had this cane here. Where is it? And this 2 or 3-year-old's got it in their hands, pretending to do a very good example or impression of what you are like, and a horrified parent chasing after them, trying to get the cane off them so they can return it to the visually impaired person. These things happen. It's called family life. And most people just joke about it, laugh about it. And at the end of the day, we aren't too worried as long as we get the piece of equipment back so that we can get out of church and get home safely. And that's the sort of things that happen. So yes, we're at the end of the service. The young people have come in back from junior church, Sunday school, whatever they call it these days. So the children have come back in. Everyone's milling around because it's the end of the service. People are packing up the sound equipment. If you're in a church hall or a shared community centre, people are gathering hymn books, and people are just having a general chatter and aren't aware of what's going on. And you as the welcoming team also there to help Becky or the visually impaired person get her out of the building or to the coffees that have been going on at that point in the service. So again, you come up to the visually impaired person and just ask, do you want to leave now, or would you like a coffee, or is there an individual that you'd like to meet up with and have a quick word with before you go? So which would you like
I'd
to do?
love a cup of tea, please.
Okay, yes, of course, we serve tea in church as well. Most churches do squash, water, and if you've been watching the news, well, they serve other drinks as well. But we will go with tea, coffee, hot chocolate, and things like that. Okay, certainly. Right, the area where they have the tea and coffees at the back, it's quite busy there. Would you like me to go and get you a drink and bring it to you here, or would you like to go to the back and get you a cup?
Well, you can get me one, James. Thank you.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Thank
That
you very
makes it
much.
nice and easy. That's an option. At the end of the day, we are there to encourage them to be as independent as possible, to encourage the individual to actually ask and explain to you how they want things for them. And as part of the family of Christ, we're there to just embrace them and love them for who they are. And so these things happen. And so I've gone, I fetched you a cup of tea. I brought it to Becky. Yes, you did want to look in that, didn't you? Did you want sugar? If not, I'm going back to get some more sugar. So there I am. Right, the cup of tea, I'm holding onto the cup in front of Becky, and I will say the cup is in front of you. If you hold your hand up, I will bring the cup to you so you know where it is, and let Becky get a firm grip of it and then take a drink. Yes, if Becky had said, I want to go to the back and get a cup of tea, we would facilitate that. We would bring her to where the tea, coffee, whatever's being served, and therefore just ensure that you get the drink that you want safely without scolding yourself. At no point do you just grab a cup from the back and just bring it and force it upon the visually impaired person. It is all about choice, and it's all about asking them the best way that you can serve them. And this is part of your Christian service. Yes, you've signed up to be part of the welcoming and team, and therefore you are there to help guide and support Becky or the visually impaired person in whichever way is possible. Right, so we've had your tea, successfully gathered the cup off you and taken it to the back, and we now know we've got two visually impaired people in the congregation, and Lynn's been sitting here really quietly because she came early. Lynn, we actually explained to her on the church so she knows roughly where everything is in the church. We may have to do this 2 or 3 times so that Lynn gets a better idea of where things are situated in that church building until she feels comfortable. And I'm just going to come to Lynn. Then on the spot, Becky is saying, would you like guiding to the back of the church so that you can find your way to your taxi or car?
Oh, that would be helpful, and I want to see the pastor on the way out.
Okay.
Please go back.
That's right. There you are. You've got instructions. You're the person with signs, so you've got to look for where the pastor is. Now, I'm very good at recognising voices in my home church, but if I'm in a visiting church situation, then yes, somebody would have to guide me to that person. There right. Okay. How would you like guiding me?
Can I hold your forearm, please? And I would like you on my left side.
You like on your left side, right? That's your forearm. Okay. As I say, I've held my arm out so that Lee can slide hers through. She's put it on top. Right. You're on the last seat in that pew, and we're going to move out to the left. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's one step out into the left. We're going to turn left, and we're going to turn left again. And we're just going to walk forward nice and gently, just be aware that there's a step way out in the passage. Just and there we are. We're at the back of church, and here's the pastor. Pastor Lynn. It's ever so nice to meet you. Lynn's a new member to the congregation today. She just wanted to say a few words to you.
Yeah.
It's just in front of you.
All right. So I will say hi to the pastor and
That's it.
offer my services anyway.
Yeah, okay. So there we go. Right. And at this point, we're heading out of church
Yeah.
to where your taxi is that's taking you. Okay. Church is one of these that's got a really nice level surface from the back of church right the way out. It might be that we are in a situation where there are steps, there is a disabled ramp, but you will guide them to the edge of the car. And at that point, Lynn, hopefully when you say we're at the car, we'll ask Lynn, do you want the front seat or the back seat?
I would like the back seat, please.
Okay, so we position Lynn so that she gets to the back seat. I'm about to open the door and it's going to open to my left. So I open it, and it opens out to the left. I would then say, Lynn, would you like to take a step forward? And I would then put your hands on the roof so you know where it is. And it's close to the door on that side. And if you reach out with your right hand, you will feel the edge of the back seat in front of you.
Yes.
Okay. I will hold the door open until you're in, and I will pass you the seatbelt once you are in. Okay.
Thank you very much. I'm actually fine grabbing the seatbelts.
Yeah.
So, but if you can hold the door, that would be very
Yes,
helpful.
certainly. So there we are. We've actually got Lynn to the taxi or to the car that she's getting into. And because of the muscle memory that she's got, she's been able to find where the seats are, where the seatbelt is, and get herself in the car. And we've succeeded in welcoming and hopefully making that person feel reassured that as part of the church community, we are there to help. We are there to help them in their worship, but we're also there to help with practical needs. So that's guiding people around the building. If they go to the toilet, just lead them to the door and explain where things are in the toilet. Because one of the things that I always say is, well, there's the disabled room, we'll be waiting here outside. And I always find myself thinking, that's great, but actually, where's the hand basin? Where's the toilet? And things like that. And, you know, if it's one of the disabled toilets with the emergency pull cord, yes, I've triggered it on several occasions because I've pulled that instead of realising it's not the light switch. So again, just explain. And in explaining, you may want to say that as you open the door, the toilet's to the right, it's on the far wall at the back. There is a disabled pull cord, so just be aware of that. And the light switches come on automatically. And then once you've finished at the toilet, if you walk forward, you will actually find the sink in front of you. And the hand dryer is at waist height on the wall just to the left of the sink or to the right, depending where it is. Or if there are paper towels, where the paper towel dispenser is and where the bin is. Okay, that's been a lot of information, and I'm sure, Matthew, there's been several questions. And while Matthew finds the questions again, I'm just going to get a drink of water.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, James. That's been a very informative presentation. And as James has said, yes, it is now time for questions. You're welcome to put questions in the chat. I've seen one come in the chat already. So we'll go to that. And then you're welcome to either continue to put questions in the chat or unmute and ask your questions in person, as it were, and we'll get James to answer those questions.
And once we've answered some of the questions, Matthew, we'll go and demonstrate how to go about tackling a flight of stairs if that is the situation.
Yes, we'll go to camera 2. It's very exciting on a staircase.
We're doing well today, aren't we?
Yes.
Okay.
So we had a question from Jean Mattinsley. When you were talking about going downstairs, and this may be covered actually when you go to the stairwell, can you describe coming down the steps, which may be more difficult? I'm not sure I fully understand the question. So Jean, you might want to unmute and ask that question by voice rather than by chat, but I'll let James answer it as best he can.
Right, stairs are always interesting, whether you're going up or down. And a lot of the time, as a visually impaired person, you suddenly find yourself at the top of a flight of stairs and think, okay, how many steps are there? Are they going down is there a landing in the middle of them that turns either left or right, or is and which side is the handrail on? I always ask for the handrail on my left, and I will always have my cane in the right hand. And I will show you out at the stairs here why I do that. But with the use of the white cane, if I can find one somewhere, because they are quite long, I don't know whether you can see the full height of that, it's about 4.5 feet in height for those of you who work in old measurement, and about 160 centimetres in modern day terminology. Well, as you can tell, it comes to my breastbone. But if there's a step there, it will drop about by about that much. So as you feel it, the top goes down and you automatically know how far down it's gone. That didn't work as I wanted to show you, but we'll try again. So it goes down and it ends up down there. And you know you've gone down, and the top of the stick, instead of being at breastbone, is now mid-stomach sort of area. And you realise it's gone down by that much. So you know that the step is going to be that deep. And because you've got the handrail on your left-hand side or the right, depending on which preference you've got, it will also tell you when you come into the end of the flight of steps. And one of the things that people regularly get into their mind is we have to tell you every step that you're going down. So this is step number 1 and it goes down, then step number 2, then number 3, then you're on number 4. Yes, that's number 5. Now, was that number 5 or number 6? So they get confused. Whereas what we would normally advise is this is the first step. There are however many steps in there, if you know it. And then you're at the last step, whether that leads onto the landing or whether that leads onto ground floor or the landing at the top of the flights of stairs. And so also with using the cane, if when the person's going up, you may notice when I do it, I use it and I actually allow the ball to hit the step and it will make a sound. And I will know that I'm going up each step and how big that step is. But again, we will show you when we get into the flights of stairs in a minute. I hope that answers your question at the moment. Very much like guiding someone's hand to the back of the pew, if they ask for the left-hand side and they are holding onto your right-hand elbow, then please take a step back and ask them to step across to that handrail. Put the hand on the handrail. They will know how many is going up. And if they lose count like you may do, they can actually realise by how the handrail goes, by the whether it comes to a curve and levels off, whether they're at the top of that section or whether it's they've finished, because some handrails are just curl round at the top and that's it, you're there. So I hope that answers the question about handrails, and we'll talk a bit more about it when we get to demonstrating you in a bit.
Brilliant. Jean had actually unmuted. I don't know if you wanted to pass any comment on that or ask for clarification, Jean.
Yes, it was more when you were coming down from putting the post-it on the altar. Would you, as the seeing person, come down the step, one step at a time, and get your person?
I would naturally walk just that slightly bit in front of the person that I'm guiding, and that way, if I forget to tell them, they would feel me going down the first step.
Yeah.
But hopefully I would remember to tell them this is the first step and it goes down. And because they've only just come up, then they should be able to realise how big the step is and how wide the steps are.
Okay, right. Because there won't be a handrail or anything for
No,
them.
that is the tricky bit. And if you're in a church where the carpet is the same as the aisle colour carpet, it might be where you consider putting in a different colour edging strip to the carpet, so that those people who've got a tiny bit of sight can actually see the edge of the step, and you'll find that they do brass, green, and near enough every colour under the rainbow to make that bit of contrast work.
Okay, thank you.
I think probably we don't have any more questions at this point. So now may be the time when we head over to the stairs.
Right, we've got to the bottom of the stairs, and I've told Becky that the handrail is on the right, it's about waist height. And it starts off level, then it begins to go up in line with the first step. But we're going to walk forward 2 or 3 spaces just till you get to that bottom step. You're there? Can you feel it in your toe?
I can.
Right, okay. And we're going to go up. There is a landing halfway up, which then turns to the left. I won't get you much else. We don't need to do that. So we're going to go up. There's the first step. We're just going to go up nice and steadily until we get to the top onto the landing, and we're going to stop. And at that point, I would take Becky round to the left and lead her onto that next step. But now we're at the top of the stairs, and this is where it gets a bit more interesting. And Becky's going to turn. She's going to grab my left elbow, and we're just going to walk on. We're at the top step. Can you feel it really tight?
Yeah.
Okay, and just take a step down. And then nice and steady, nice and steady, nice and steady, nice and steady. That's the bottom step on your level. And that's how you do steps. Very straightforward. But if you're an organisation where they've got a lift, it's a lot easier. So just to recap the stairs, because Becky was on my right-hand side, we automatically chose the right-hand handrail. And I basically said to Becky, the handrail is to the right, it's at about waist height, it might be slightly higher. So if you feel out gently to the right, you will be able to detect where the handrail is. You should be able to note that it's level at the moment. We will take 2 or 3 steps forward till we get to the bottom step. That's it, we're now at the bottom step. You can also feel that the handrail starts to go up in direction. So we're about to go up. I didn't count how many steps there were. I just told Becky when we got to the top of them that we were at the last step and we were going on to the landing that turns to the right. And then coming down again, we just demonstrated with ease that Becky was on my right-hand side. And again, sorry, you were on my left-hand side. And again, we explained where the handrail was and just said when we got to the bottom step once we'd started. So we keep it as simple as possible. That way we don't get confused when we're giving the instructions. But as I say, one of the best things that you can actually do is actually get a blindfold and get somebody else on the welcome team to guide you around the church, explaining where the steps are, explaining where the anomalies are, explaining where the surfaces in the floor change, that's from a stone aisle to a carpet, because for somebody who's been impaired, they suddenly put their feet on this squelchy surface. They suddenly find themselves thinking, where are we? What are we doing? Are we on someone's item of clothing? Or worse still, are we on treading onto a young child who's in the way? Or are we literally walking on a carpet? And it's always good just to tell the person what the surface that they're working on is. So yes, thank you.
Well, that's brilliant. Thanks very much, James. There is a little bit more time for questions if anybody wants to ask, either in the chat or by unmuting. While people are thinking about questions, I have a question, actually, as somebody who is guided very often but doesn't know the official protocol. We've talked about left and right quite a lot, and there are 2 problems with left and right, actually. First of all, people often forget their left and rights, and that's understandable. But the other problem that I have, when somebody says to me, you know, what side do you want me on? I never know whose perspective to answer from, because I generally hold out my left hand to hold somebody's right elbow. So do I say right or left? Because it's my left, their right.
You're always going from your perspective, Matthew, and say left, because it's what you want. And if you've held your elbow out to meet somebody's, held your hand out to meet somebody's elbow, then that's great. That should give them enough of an indicator to which side they need to be on. And the other one, if people can't remember left and right, try and remember the clock face. And you can talk about, well, we're going to turn to 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock obviously is a 90-degree turn to the right. If you said 9 o'clock, that would be a 90-degree turn to the left. And if we said 6 o'clock, then they know that they are being turned completely round to face in the opposite direction. And if we're going straight ahead, we don't need to talk about 12 o'clock. And that's always another useful technique. But again, some visually impaired and blind people don't actually know about how a clock face works. And so recognizing those angles will be more difficult, especially in this digital age, where they're used to digital devices giving them the time, or their mobile phone, or that wonderful device from Amazon or something equivalent. So yeah, that's the other way of doing turning left, right, forward, straight on. And at times it helps in negotiating with slight obstacles such as the wet floor signs or bollards that you find outside the churches. So yeah, hope that answers your question, Matthew.
It does. Thank you very much. So that's it from us. So thanks very much for joining us, and we'll see you soon, and bye for now.
To find out more about Sight Loss Friendly Church, please get in touch. Telephone 01858 438 260. Email slfc@torchtrust.org or visit our website sightlossfriendlychurch.org.uk. Sight Loss Friendly Church from Torch Trust.